Hi, Paul Sakis. I'm with Hope Baker. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Paul. I'm good. How are you? Good to be back.
And I'm happy you're back because what we talked about previously, and her book is called Finding Hope, A Birthmother's Journey into the Light, and the 21 years old Hope made one of the hardest decisions a person can make. She placed her son up for adoption to live with her son's adoptive mother while she was pregnant and pursued an open adoption. Okay. I thank you. And thank you for writing the book. And thank you for our last interview. You know, uh, what, what, this is a very, very important subject for me on many levels. Adopting some child, I think personally, is one of the greatest, maybe I almost feel it's greater than having your own child. Um, are equal. No, I think it's more because it's really, that child is, for whatever the circumstance is, um, doesn't not involved with a decision because if they're a young one and they can't make a decision, if they're a little older, then whatever they didn't live in a good home or whatever it was, it gets a little more complicated. But knowing what you knew enough to agree to doing this was very brave of you, and I will say very wise of you. But remind us of the story, of the way it happened for you.
Yes. So I found myself at 21, a junior in college, and what I've now, in years after learned is called the crisis pregnancy. I wasn't planning for this. It happened. I wasn't in the right financial place, mental place, emotional place to have a child at that time. And after going through, many different options, I made the choice to have my son and place him for adoption and place him in an open adoption, which meant and which still means that I do still have access to him. So I get to see him a couple times a year. With COVID, that doesn't exist. I haven't seen him in over a year now, but in a typical year, I'd get to see him 2 to 3 times a year. I get pictures, videos. We FaceTime every now and then. So a truly, open adoption. And really, the book and a lot of the speaking I do is just around that topic of how do you make a decision like this, although the right one at the time. Sorry, my dog is popping up. How do you make a decision like this and then cope through life? And how do you, go through the pain of knowing that your child is doing things for the first time today, or maybe having a bad day and you wish you could be there, or they're sick, or they're happy. And, how do you deal with that trauma every day of living with a decision that you consciously made? I mean, for myself, like that's a heavy, heavy, heavy thing to carry on my shoulders every day. So it was extremely challenging for the first 5 years, and left me in a lot of scary places. And I think whether you're a birth mom or not, we've all been in dark places that can sometimes turn scary. Um, so I really just wanted to share my journey of, first off, that, a birth mother, it's not a dirty word. And, struggling with trauma and grief and acting out, whether it's addiction or depression or, all the above, those are normal reactions to trauma. But there are ways to heal from that trauma, and there is ways to come out on the other side.
Of which you did. Actually, I when you shared your little doggie over there for me, actually reminded me of a conversation I had with one of my closest friends today, when he told me, he loves his dog Charlie, and loves his dog dearly. And I said, well, where'd you get this? How you get Charlie? Okay, first of all, it has a fancy name. Charlie's a fancy name. I can't remember what it was, but it was very fancy French name. And I said, well, where'd you get Charlie? I'm figuring, 15, a lot of money he says, I adopted him. He was a foster care. He was in a home, that somebody in essence couldn't couldn't take care of Charlie well enough, or felt for whatever their particular scenario was, they gave him to a place that opens their doors for adoptions. So, I'm once again, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's wonderful also that you have this relationship that you can go and see your child. How old is your son now?
He will be 8 in September. And it is actually, Paul, it's interesting that you mention, the dog piece, because obviously you just saw my dog. He's a rescue. And he was in a foster home. They found, the mom and puppies and whatnot. And being a birth mom and driving away with this little puppy away from his mom and his siblings, for some reason, I just was like all of a sudden taken back to when I left my son in Los Angeles and moved back to Minnesota for college. And it was weird that like adopting my dog triggered all of these different things, because it's humans and dogs. My dog is like my child. He is my child in a way, So there are similarities in that sense. I would never want to relate a human to a dog, but you
Right.
know,
For me, that's okay. I believe we're dogs. I believe we're animals, and uh, we either were here before as an animal, and I'm a reincarnation as whatever. It's all good. Maybe a tree even, which has our DNA as well. So I'm okay. I'm one. I'm Om. Om Shanti Om. Om. We're all one. So it's an interesting concept. I'll ask you though, but because do you think um, you adopted your dog because of what possibly you still like love and you still like companionship, and that you were missing that, or did you already have another child, or did you what year was your status?
yeah. So I do not have any other children, and that's something I've, had to wrestle with in my head is, will I ever be able to have another child guilt free? And because, I mean, how do you have another child knowing that you placed your first child, or, for some birth mothers, it's their second or third. So I always grapple with that. But I was engaged to somebody and lived in London and was going to get married and decided to walk away from that. And I think I just, I saw his picture on Facebook that he was in this foster home of a woman I knew. And I fell in love with him. And I will tell you that in these last, 8 months, 7 months, he has provided a lot of companionship and emotional support that I don't think I ever knew that I was necessarily missing until he came into my life. And I'm like, wow, I, I really needed this. And it is interesting because he has provided. I mean, there's days that are hard, and there's days where I'm sad because of a trigger, or, I watch This Is Us and I cry. And my dog, first off, he's 9 months old. So he's crazy. He's a puppy. He's got all the breeds that are hyper mixed into him. And so, but when I'm sad, he knows, and he'll come and he'll nuzzle up on me. Even if I'm sitting at my desk, he'll come and he'll just put his nose on me. And I'm like, how do you know this? Like, he just picks up on when I need him. And oh my gosh, it's incredible.
Because he is you, and you are him,
Yeah.
and that's why I believe, and I see no reason not to believe it, and that their barking or their whatever noises they're
Yeah.
making is like your little baby with their own communications. They're communicating in the manner that, and all the animals, the birds, everybody's out there. You know, my uncle Charlie's flying around. Whatever's happening, it's all
Yeah.
it's all good. It's all good. Well, I just wanted to say a catch up hello. Hopefully, the book is going okay for you, and getting more opportunities to speak in this regard. And I personally think that to have a baby, and I know what my friends went through to adopt a baby, and boy, and they've adopted three in the end. but between the financial aspect of it, between the stress aspect of it, they cherish those children so much because they were, I want to say tortured, but they worked so hard, and they're the most loving couple in the world, as far as I've like crazily wonderful. And if you can't have a baby and you really want a child, I mean, I see nothing wrong with somebody having a child. I don't see anything wrong with me making a baby with somebody who wants to have a baby. I had never done it, but I never did it. But I would do it. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it's a beautiful thing. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think that adoption there's always going to be crisis pregnancies. No matter what we do, there are always going to be women who aren't ready or who, aren't financially stable enough to have a child. That's always going to exist. And there's always going to be people who have infertility issues or who can't have biological children. That's always going to exist. So I don't advocate for adoption to go away because I think it's needed. I mean, it's always going to be needed. And there's times when I hate adoption, but I do believe in adoption. I mean, look at what it did for my life. I mean, I just think about the life my son has and the life that I've been able to build for myself. And adoption has had very negative impacts in my life, and I'm sure in my son's life, but very positive ones too. So I think there's also this big movement around adoption of how do we make it ethical? How do we make it so people who want to adopt, first off, it doesn't cost $50,000 to adopt a child, because we have to remember at the end of the day, adoption is $1 billion industry, right? It is like, it's $1 billion industry. Adoption is huge, huge money. And I think adoption can be beautiful, but the practices today they just need to be more ethical. You look at stuff like the Paul Peterson cases and just human trafficking and agencies being extremely unethical. Like your friends who wanted to adopt a baby, although I believe education of, the entire process, education of raising an adopted child should be extremely heavy, but I don't think that it should be, a $30, $40, $50,000. I don't agree with that, especially when most of that money is going to agencies, right? It's going to these adoption agencies. Those funds aren't being put back to support birth mothers after birth. I mean, most agencies, birth mothers, once they place, I mean, they're forgotten. They don't provide counseling. They don't provide any support groups, anything like that. I mean, you literally, in the eyes of a lot of agencies, you're a vessel carrying a child. And once you give it to that family and sign your paperwork, you're gone. And I don't think that that's ethical. So I think adoption will always be around, but I think we need to make more pushes to, we got to create laws and guidelines to make it more ethical for both sides, for the adoptive parents, hopeful adoptive parents, and birth mothers, and of course, adoptees, the children.
Got it. Hope, what's peace for you? Involved with world peace and our events and so on and so forth. What's peace for you? What makes peace for you?
Being a kind person. I think if we all could, do a couple acts of kindness every single day, soon they'd become habit and we'd be just doing them all the time. But I think today, I might have a different answer tomorrow, but today I think that's my, what is peace for me?
There you go. It's a good answer. It's a great answer. Perfect answer. All right. Oh, thanks. Nice to talk to you again.
Thanks, Paul. We'll talk soon.
Okay.